sou da Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul. Muito infelizmente eu não posso estar junto com vocês em Foz do Iguaçu, mas a Cristiana teve a gentileza de me oferecer uma participação virtual. E espero que este vídeo possa lhes interessar. Vou tratar de dupla diplomação, double degree em inglês, é um assunto no qual tenho uma certa experiência. Já ofereci com minha colega Paloma Dias um workshop de 3 horas no último encontro da FAUBAI em Porto Alegre. Essa é uma versão resumida. Aproveito também para dizer que com a Paloma estamos trabalhando em um MOOC e espero em breve que vocês possam acessar mais material online, bem elaborado, com mais detalhes. Boa parte da palestra vai ser em inglês, espero que isso não fique ruim para vocês, mas tenho bons motivos para isso. Primeiramente, estou usando material que já preparei em inglês, vou reaproveitar essa gravação em outros momentos também, mas sobretudo no fundo eu estou muito convencido que faz parte da nossa rotina nas relações internacionais de trabalhar em inglês. Vocês precisam trabalhar com gente com meu sotaque francês e inglês, ninguém precisa ser 100% fluente, mas faz parte do job interagir em inglês, sobretudo para trabalhar sobre dupla diplomação. Então vamos lá, vou começar a detalhar a pauta de hoje. Right, so what are we going to talk about? First, I'm going to define this idea of double degree because there's many confusion regarding terminology. Then I will discuss about the reasons why you want to sign double degree agreements, and there are 3 of them in my opinion. Then we'll come to how you can do this really, so concretely what are you going to discuss with your partners and put in the written agreement, and then some conclusions. First, what are we talking about and what are we not talking about? Well, in my experience, there are very different notions which are understood as double degrees. You have 2 very separate cases here. Everything that has to do with degree validation, accreditation, the terminology can change depending on the language and translations don't help. In any case, the student has obtained 1 degree in 1 country and this piece of paper needs to be validated by another university in another country. Maybe it's done at the ministry level, maybe there is a national council which decides what is valid, but anyway there's no double degree, it's only 1 degree. On the other hand, you have what really matters for us here, double degrees, and again there's a whole spectrum of possibilities. It starts with what is usual, quality mobility. Students go and study abroad 1 semester, 2 semesters, in the end they come back and they revalidate their credits. It's of course a very important complex topic and there is some overlap with double degrees because you need to revalidate credits to get a double degree. But these are different concepts and I don't want to discuss too much about this right now. On the other hand, you have what are called joint degrees. There is also student mobility, but in the end students get 1 unique degree. And most of the time, defining a joint degree means creating a new degree, which is much more complex than getting a joint degree. What I want to focus on is double degrees. 2 institutions agree to award their degrees, their home degrees, to 1 student who has studied part of the curriculum of the other ones. So each university maintains its own home degree, but the students will get both of them because he has somehow traveled and done part of the studies of each one of the institutions. Both degrees usually refer to each other, so there's no possibility for the student to get 1 degree without the other when he is inside a double degree agreement. So double degree are really a middle point between simple quality mobility and joint degrees which need the creation of a new one. When it comes to double degrees, even if you agree on the definition, there is still some room for ambiguity, and it's the level of the degree which is the target of the double degree agreement. It can be either undergraduate, master, or PhD level, which is reached by the agreement. And there are a lot of confusions regarding this point. For many universities around the world, it's very natural to think about 1 level, typically master. If you talk with Europeans, for instance, of double degrees, they usually immediately think about double degree at master level. At PhD level, of course, it's called co-tutelle. It's a very standard tool. Well, during this speech, we'll discuss about double degrees at undergraduate level. You can do it at whatever level you want. It's really up to you.
what you need to do and to be very specific with your partner, because it's very, very easy. I've had this experience quite a number of times, to start discussing about double degree at undergraduate level, and your partner really thinks that you want to work at master or PhD level. So make sure that you discuss this double degree agreement very clearly at a given level, and what is clear for you may not be as clear for the partner. So Paloma has joined me because she has some question about this matter of double degree, and you may have the same questions.
Okay, Nicolas, the most of people thinks that cannot sign a double degree agreement because of ministerial accreditation. What do you think about?
Yeah, that's something I frequently hear. People fear to sign a double degree agreement because they think that CAP, SO, MEC, which really validates our courses here, our degrees in Brazil, need to have a view on this. And actually, I think it's a misunderstanding, because if you are a university, you are already authorized by CAP, SO, MEC to award a degree. The only thing you are doing with this kind of agreement is to decide with a partner how much you can integrate foreigners who have studied part of the degrees in another institution inside a pre-existing degree. So it's not about having a new accreditation from the ministry. It's really about working inside the margins that you already have inside a given curriculum to synchronize it with a partner foreign institution.
Okay, thank you. And there are people that think you cannot award a double degree agreement because of professional accreditation bodies.
Okay, and on this point, it's really a fallacy, and it's something I've heard a lot. Many engineers came and told me, look, we can't sign this because our body of engineers won't allow foreigners to work with these degrees. And again, it's a total confusion. It's one thing to award a degree at the level of the university. It's a totally different story whether or not the people who have the degree will be able to work in a private company. That's actually exactly the same question for a Brazilian citizen. You give a degree. Whether or not this Brazilian will work in a given field as lawyer, as engineer, as architect with this degree, how he or she will do this with a professional body, it's a problem of the alumni, of the former students. It's not your problem as a university. So you don't need, I think, to be concerned with this. It's not your problem. You give your degree plus another one to a foreign student. How he or she is going to use this degree to be enabled to have the right to work with this degree, it's another problem. It depends on the visa, it depends on the laws for foreigners to be able to work in the country, and it also depends on the professional accreditation bodies. But it's really a separate issue, non-academic issue. The university is outside of its role if it's trying to work on this level.
Okay. And about money, financial studies?
Yeah, that's another point. Many people actually don't engage on double degree agreements because they think that they will need money at least to fund the students, because usually we are talking about 3 semesters, maybe 4 semesters for a given student who is going to study abroad, so it means funding, of course. But again, it's a confusion between two different matters. You can, and I think you should, work on establishing equivalencies between curriculum and signing double degree agreements independently from the financial necessity for a given student to travel abroad. You're talking about a quality process which will also increase a lot the chances that a given student can have when he or she applies to a funding agency, because if there is a double degree agreement, probably many people's CAPES in Brazil, foreign institutions will be more interested in funding the student because they know something qualitatively good will come out from the experience. So money actually is not a prerequisite, it's something which comes afterwards. You don't need money to set up a double degree agreement, but usually if you set up a double degree agreement, you'll have easier access to money to fund the students and the mobilities. after we discussed with Paloma of some urban myth, I want to come to the motivation for the double degrees. Why do you want to sign double degrees? Well, basically there are three reasons I think that you can think of. The first one is that double degrees are really an in-between, an efficient middle term between regular credit mobility and high-end joint degrees. As I was mentioning in the introduction, student mobility is of course important, we all work with this, but it's only an individual experience for the student. At best he or she revalidates credits, but you usually want to do more than this. And the issue with credit mobility is that those people in charge of revalidating the credits, usually they focus on each one of the courses that the student has taken in the other institution. Now, when you go to joint degrees, it's the contrary. You really merge two different courses to get to one degree in the end. So on one hand, you have credit mobility, which is really focused on each one of the courses that the student takes. It's 2 ECTS, it's 4 ECTS, it's 4 credits. On the other hand, you have one big merge of 2 degrees. In the middle, you really have this concept of double degree, which is very interesting because you go beyond the local view of each credit that the student has taken abroad, but you don't have to go as far as having to merge different degrees. So it's something you can work on, it's practical, you can really quickly reach out some good results without too many trouble. Now it's also a question about really working with the right partners, because if you want to sign a double degree, the rectors will do it, you have to make sure that both your university and the partner universities really recognize each other as having more or less the same academic weight. To give you an example, my university, UFRGS, I like to think of it as a strong, important university, but I know for a fact that if I go to Oxford University and ask them to sign a double degree agreement, they probably won't agree on this, because deep inside they probably think that their degrees are much more, are much stronger than ours. Even if they agreed to sign an agreement, I'm really not sure whether a student from Oxford would agree to come to Porto Alegre, to UFRGS, to have a degree, because probably his or her degree at Oxford is so much more valuable than mine that probably the students wouldn't be interested. So you have to be very honest with yourself and very, very clear about how much your university can be compared to another one to really start working on a double degree agreement. Now, a second very important reason why you want to set up a double degree is the reflection on the curriculum. There would be a lot of things we could say about this, and in the MOOC we're preparing with Paloma, we will be diving deep on this subject. Paloma, she has a PhD in education and she's very competent on this subject of how much the national law in Brazil, LDB, really defines what is a curriculum and how what we call the grade curricular really is only part of the curriculum, and what mostly matters is not really the grade, it's really which skills the students should get in the end when he or she graduates. So there is a lot of reflection on this. Double degrees are very useful to have this reflection and to feed this reflection with the example of an international partner. So double degrees are very good to really work on how could you change your curriculum. If you look at your curriculum has a grid, which is the standard view. This is not a curriculum, this is a grid of courses. It's a tool, a very operative tool, so that students know with which professor they will have which class in which room. It's not a curriculum, it's a wrong view of it's a very rigid view of a curriculum. What we want to do is to go from this, which for me makes me think about something else, which is that it's another kind of green. What you really want is to melt this, is to reach something which is more flexible, more adaptable to whatever situation.
note that there are still some frames here. You still have some notion of course. I don't want to mean that you should forget everything about how you divide your curriculum in classes. But you need some margin left, and double degrees are very important for this because you force people to think about the big picture, which is and not about the individual details of each one of the courses. Now there is a third argument why you want to set up double degree, which is a student motivation. From the point of view of the students, getting 2 degrees while taking only 1 in the beginning, it's more work. They need to spend some more time abroad. Usually they have to study 1 or 2 more semesters, but in the end they get 2 degrees. So it's some more work, but for an outcome which is very important for them. Especially if you sign a double degree agreement with an important foreign institution, I promise you that your students will love it. Then it's also a means for those students to have a better access and improved access to the job market in the other country. It's one thing to have 1 degree and to revalidate it in another country. It's complicated, especially for foreign students who come here in Brazil to work. Revalidating their national degree is complicated. Now, if they get a 2nd degree from the other country, it's much more easy. It's much easier for them to work because they have the national degree which is automatically validated. So 3 reasons to motivate double degrees. This idea of equating your degree to some important international partner, the idea of internationalizing the curriculum, and of course having a highly motivating tool for the students. Okay, so now that we know why we want to set up double degrees, let's go to how you do it. What are you going to do? First, where do I start? In which level do we work? Well, you depend on a lot of context here. You have, of course, a national law. You have some decrees from the ministers to refine the laws. But of course, we're going to work at the level of the university here. It's important to be aware of it because this means that if you want to set up a double degree, you have to have some means of working with those councils at your university which will really decide on the validity of this agreement. It's probably not at the department level. You need, of course, a lot of support from the department, from professors of the courses which you are turning equivalent to a foreign degree, but you will certainly need some support from what in Brazil we call the câmaras, o Conselho da Universidade, because remember that in the end the rector of the university will sign this agreement, right? So we are really working at this level here. Now, first things first, you will need to sign a double degree agreement, but you can't do it if there is no basic mobility before. So it's absolutely no use trying to contact whatever university around the world and tell them, look, let's try and sign a double degree agreement. You have to make sure that you will have students interested. I have mentioned the case of Oxford University. I'm pretty sure that a very limited number of students from Oxford will be ready to come in Portugal to study in my university. So we don't have any prior experience of student mobility with Oxford, so I'm not going to try and sign a double degree agreement with Oxford. Now, you take, for instance, Spanish universities, Portuguese universities, French grandes écoles d'ingénieurs. We've had a lot of student mobility both ways for decades now with some of those universities. We've had a lot of professors from both universities who went to the other one, who maybe got a PhD in the other university. So a lot of people, students and academic, know each other and are more or less convinced that it's really possible that our students do well in the partner universities, and the partner universities will send us students who will really learn something good in our university. So first, you really need to have this prior background. You can't pull out of your hat a new double degree agreement with whatever institution that you meet in some international fair. Okay, you need some background. Then, you have to make sure that you're going to analyze and compare the curricula. Here I've put again this grid. I don't mean to say that you have to find the equivalency on each one of the courses of the grid. You don't want to do this, right? What you want is having a broad comparison, maybe set of courses by set of courses, module by module, with a partner institution to make sure that broadly the student gets to understand the same notions and have the same skills at the end of the total formation, right? So don't start comparing course by course to curricula. This is absolutely useless. No professor is going to do this. And there's no need. That's not what it's about, double degree. It's really having a broad understanding that in the end the students in both curricula get the same knowledge. Then you need to think about some other items which will be part of the agreement. First, the right mobility window. Certainly there will be some mobility involved. And actually it's not very hard to define it. Students usually have to know the basics of their home formation before they can travel. And usually they can be too old because they will need to get at least usually 30% of each one of the institution's courses. So it means that they will need to spend 3, maybe 4 semesters abroad, or that you will need to receive 3 or 4 semester students from your partner universities. So if you have this mobility window which is 2 years long, let's say, if the students can't travel before he or she reaches the 5th semester in your university, this mobility window, you don't have much margin to define it. But you have to define it together with a partner. Then you have to be selective, because again, it's not basic student mobility. Students will get a degree, yours and the partners. And if to give your degree, to award your degree, you of course have to be very selective, very rigorous about what you're going to do. It's not only validating a few credits, it's a whole degree in the end. The same thing stands for the partner. So you really can't engage in this process with students who don't have a very clear idea that in the end they will have to comply to both universities' criteria of excellence to get the degree. It's not for the students, look, I'm going to try and see what happens, because it's not only about 1 semester abroad and the student comes back, and if he or she doesn't validate what has been done in the other university, while the student only misses 1 semester. No, it's a whole degree which the student is going to pass or not. So you have to be selective, and the students have to agree on this, because again, if they just want to give it a try, it's not going to work, right? Double degree is not about quantity. You'll never have hundreds of students in mobility through a double degree agreement. It's not this. You'll have a few students, maybe only 1 or 2 per year, willing to engage. You have to make sure that those 2 or 3 students are really ready to do this. Plus, you want to be selective, and you can be selective, because a student who wouldn't fit into this framework, he or she can still do regular mobility for credits. He won't have the double degree, but he can still go to the partner, study 1 semester, and come back to university and revalidate credits. So there is a plan B for the student who wouldn't fit into the criteria, into the selective criteria. Okay, so you can afford and you should be selective. The selection criteria have to be in the agreement, of course. Then, in the end, the student will will make a final presentation. So you have to make sure that the agreement explains, states in which conditions the jury will be called, which will be a mixed jury with representatives of both universities. Can you use virtual means to invite the partners through Skype or through web conference? Or maybe will the student have to defend twice, once in the partner university and once in your university? There are universities in the world where the defense has to be in 1 specific room, in 1 specific building of the university. If this is the case of your partner, probably, well, you have to deal with the partner to make sure that this applies, but that your criteria of your university also apply for the defense. Some other technical points are important to be considered. First, language issues. they are much more relevant than in standard mobility. Because again, in standard credit mobility, the student tries, if he succeeds in those credits where he can revalidate them, if he doesn't succeed, it's no big deal. Basically loses some time, wastes some time abroad, but he has learned some cultural things, fine. Again, in this context, we are talking about double degree, getting a degree. So you have to make sure that the language issues are solved, that the student will be able to understand in the partner institution what is being taught, and that the student you receive is able to understand what you teach at your university. Plus, in those agreements, the student will certainly have to take some classes which are heavy, which are at the core of the curriculum of the partner university. So again, there can't be any issue regarding language. The enrollment, you will have to enroll students at your university, but also at the other university. You have to discuss about this in the agreement. Is it alternatively in each one of the universities? Is it all semesters in both universities? If the partner universities is asking for fees for tuitions, well, how will it fit with your home local tuition policy? This has to be discussed, of course. Internships, final projects, graduation ceremony, all this has to be part of the agreement. If the student has to make a mandatory internship at some point, you have to discuss with the partner of where this internship is going to happen. In Brazil, in the partner country, maybe in some other country. How much time will it take? How will it be supervised? All this should be part of the agreement. I may have given the impression so far that you, me, we at the International Office need to do all of this. Actually, it's not about the case, because most of the competencies that you need to sign a double degree, you probably don't have them inside the International Office. So here I'm detailing 4 different actors in this process, and all 4 of them are important. At the International Office here, as you see, we're only 1/4 and maybe not even 25% of the human resources needed to sign up a double degree agreement. Maybe the most important part is the department level. If you want to discuss about curriculum equivalency, you need to involve academics, professors, the deans of those faculties, the heads of the departments, the coordinadores de curso. These are the persons who need to get involved to really discuss about the curriculum. Myself, I'm from the International Office. As it happens, I'm a professor in computer science. I could only, if I wanted to, work on double degree in computer science, which I don't even want to do, being the international officer of my university, because I'm not here to work as professor of computer science. I'm here to work on double degrees on as many fields as possible. So you really need to externalize, to outsource this competency to the right persons who are the professors of the field, of the department involved in the double degree. And it's probably not one professor only. It's certainly a group of 2 or 3 professors, right? Maybe one professor who knows very well the partner institution, plus the coordinator of the course, plus maybe some other professor willing to engage in the idea. If you're working now on issues relative to double degrees, you certainly need also specialists in higher education on curriculum. What does it mean to define a curriculum? And these are specialists you probably will find at your faculty of education, or maybe at your vice presidency for undergraduate studies, Proritoria de Graduação. Right? You certainly have some departments here who need to be involved to help you prepare the documents and making sure that everything is in agreement with your rules at your university. Then, if those 3 actors, probably those 2 ones coordinated by you, work at the International Office to interact with the partner, if those 3 actors really engage and succeed in writing down a proposal, at some point you will need to work with the 4th part here, which is the Council of Studies, o Conselho de Estudos, Conselho de Graduação, a Câmara de Graduação, Conselho Universitário, whatever the name it has in your university, you have at least 1 and maybe 2 different councils which will be in charge of really accepting the agreement. Only after those councils agree on the agreement will the rector be able to really sign the agreement. So again, it's different stories, different persons, people who may not be aware of the work of the other ones. So probably your work as international officer will be to make sure that the agreement flows among all those sectors, so that in the end the rector is able to sign it. Okay, so again, this means that as international officer, you probably don't want to start this kind of work if you are not in a position to interact with all these other actors of your university.
Right, so I've discussed about a lot of things today, motivations, definitions, technically speaking, what you're going to put into your agreement. Now, if you want some really detailed references, you have a set of URLs of web addresses which you can access. Of course, some national references like the LDB, the site of MEC. But of course, many universities in Brazil already have such agreements. And for instance, at UFRGS, you have some agreements which have been set up, which you can access to see how it is really detailed. Bem, então está na hora de concluir. Eu acho que eu já falei bastante, inclusive mais do que os 15, 20 minutos que eu queria gravar, e com o risco de ter ficado um pouco maçante, espero que não. Agradeço a minha colega Paloma pela ajuda na gravação e a participação que eu espero que tenha tornado um pouco mais viva a experiência aqui. Teria muito mais coisas para falar ainda no workshop na FAUBAI. Falamos 3 horas sobre o assunto. Em particular, eu cortei essa apresentação porque não ia funcionar tecnicamente falando a descrição dos convênios que nós temos com todas as cláusulas, mas obviamente elas estão online e vocês podem ficar à vontade para baixar esses convênios e estudá-los como vocês quiserem. Fiquem à vontade para nos mandar e-mails. Meu e-mail é nicolas.maillard@relinter.urgs.br. O e-mail da Paloma é simples, paloma@relinter.urgs.br. Nós ficaremos muito satisfeitos em responder e informá-los mais um pouco. Acessem o site web da Relinter também, urgs.br/relinter, que tem todos os nossos convênios. O assunto nos é muito importante. Nós estamos preparando então um curso online open, aberto e maciço. Esperamos que deveria conter muito mais informações e detalhamento e mais alguns exercícios inclusive. Então, quando ele for liberado, nós vamos avisar a toda a lista da FAUBAI com certeza. E é um assunto importante porque ele possibilita que o setor de relações internacionais trabalhe a questão da internacionalização pela internacionalização do currículo. Nós estamos muito acostumados a trabalhar com mobilidade estudantil, em receber delegações, em ir no exterior de vez em quando. Com esse assunto da dupla diplomação, a gente mergulha profundamente na parte do ensino, na graduação. É óbvio que o escopo de atuação natural da Pró-Reitoria de Graduação, da Faculdade de Educação, é que nós não temos vocação a nos substituir a esses órgãos, mas pelo menos na URGS, o que eu defendo é que o papel do setor de relações internacionais é também contribuir na internacionalização do ensino e trazer nossas parcerias internacionais para enriquecer as ideias sobre a forma como lecionamos, como nossos alunos aprendem e como nossos currículos possibilitam esse aprendizado. Então eu acho que é uma contribuição muito interessante, muito importante que nós podemos dar também. Óbvio que pede um papel ao setor de relações internacionais que é ambicioso. Eu mencionei, eu expliquei as interações que são necessárias, mas eu acho que é um escopo de atividade muito importante para nós também. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Lamento mais uma vez por não poder estar junto com vocês, mas com certeza vocês vão aprender muita coisa e a gente se vê nos meses que vêm, por exemplo, na próxima edição da FAUBAI no Rio. Tchau!